Good afternoon, everybody. We will be getting started in just a couple of minutes. I would like to direct your attention to the description of this live stream. I've already put in a couple of links of interest, the survey for feedback afterwards. Especially, please take a few minutes and fill out the survey so I can take your feedback into consideration for the next session. I'm going to get started in just a minute. Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2 o'clock Eastern time, so I'm going to get started. I have learned a lot in the last week after my first ever webinar. So here are some new logistics based on those lessons learned. I will be live streaming from YouTube only from now on. If you're listening to this, you found it. And I will be posting the resources that I referenced throughout the webinar in the notes section of my new Facebook page. And that link should be right in the description of this video. I will also be emailing it out directly to everybody who's given me their email address. So if you want to make sure you get everything straight to your email, be sure that I have your email address either in the feedback survey at the end of this presentation, or you can send me an email directly at janenataliecoaching@gmail.com. I've also ventured into a Facebook group of our own based on people's requests to get some feedback and collaboration based on the work that we're doing in these webinars. You can join 2 groups that are both linked to my coaching page. One of them is for the tech help, and the other one is for what I refer to as the good stuff, actually talking about education, the research, the theory, and the idea of using this opportunity of pandemic and shutdown to actually take action on reimagining what education should look like in the United States and around the world. Once again, if you did not join me last week, I am Jane Natalie. I am an instructional coach, and I have been helping teachers and administrators use technology in authentic and effective ways for the last 6 years. And this is my first venture into the social media side of things. I have my contact information up, and it will be up again at the end of the webinar so that we can keep in touch past you watching me on YouTube Live. I got such a reaction of people who wanted this kind of help that I have put together what I am calling my Spontaneous Summer Series. We are in part 2 today, and there will be 2 more sessions on the next 2 Sundays right on this YouTube channel. And next week will be about assessment, how we can make sure that we are accurately assessing students for any gaps from learning because of the shutdown or any unfinished learning in their lives, but also making sure that we are taking into account what skills and knowledge they've already mastered coming into our classrooms. And the following Sunday, we are going to talk about how to plan for the uncertainty of going to school, hybrid models, or being at home remotely, and what strategies we can use to keep our learning management systems organized so those transitions are as seamless as possible. Today, we are going to focus our mindset on that idea of acceleration versus remediation and what it means to come into our classrooms with an asset-based mindset. Then I am going to get into the technology, picking up where we left off last week with interactive and adaptive learning materials as the second step of making our Bitmoji classrooms. And then we are going to talk about what it is we should be putting into those classrooms and into those learning materials based on the work of John Hattie and Visible Learning. I have to get on my soapbox for one more minute this week. When we go back to school, or as the school year progresses, if you're watching this having already started the school year, we know we will be faced with unprecedented challenges. From trying to maintain social distancing, managing our own and our students' increased anxiety about being in public together, to organizing our classrooms and workflow to be ready to shift between those models of instruction based on community spread, to the actual teaching, addressing potential amplified learning loss due to extended time away from school, while staying true to our commitment of providing all students quality instruction at their grade level. Research and common sense tells us that the only way for students who are already behind to catch up to grade level learning is to make more than 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. We will be reviewing some of John Hattie's research again later in this webinar that gives us guidance on what strategies can impact student learning in a way, whether we're in person or remote, that helps them make that growth. But first, we need to clearly address our mindsets to make sure that we are ready to tackle that challenge. I approach all learning, whether working with adults or students, from an asset-based approach. This means I try my best to look at what the person brings to the table rather than what he or she is lacking. We all bring something to the table, even as teachers right now. Veteran teachers who are swamped by the technology bring years of experience to the conversation. Newer teachers may be learning the ropes of good teaching, but are more tech savvy. Of course, I'm painting with broad strokes, but you get the point. Together, we can make tremendous strides. Our students also come to us with these funds of knowledge, background experiences that help them in life and can help them in school if we allow it. So let me tell you a quick story before I get started. I tutored a senior in high school years ago, Jeffrey. He was miserably failing most of his classes, in danger of not graduating. I would meet him at a local bookstore to do homework together and try to teach him what he wasn't quite grasping in class. I learned a lot of algebra too that year. He would struggle through his work, but when he took a break, he would tell me his own stories. In his spare time, he was an entrepreneur. He didn't know what that was, but he knew he needed a side hustle. He bought and sold clothes, cleaned shoes, refurbished electronics. He had a vision for his own consignment shop, having critiqued other shops and making arguments for how he would run his better. He could tell me about the inventory of all the local shoe stores, when the new styles were going to hit the shelves, why they stocked more of certain sizes, how they limited quantities to increase demand, and how much you could mark up a secondhand pair of shoes online once the stores sold out. Needless to say, he taught me a thing or two. One day I asked him how he taught himself all this stuff, and he replied, I don't know, I just like learning things I like. And his teachers didn't know any of this. They saw a nice enough kid, someone who avoided work like the plague, who had horrific spelling and grammar, but he'd talk your ear off. What I'm trying to say here is that before we can talk about implementing best practices or creating lessons designed to catching kids up, we have to believe they can do it. We have to get to know them, what they bring to the table, and use their own passions and interests to catapult them forward, instead of boring them to death and holding them back. Schools should not be places where young people go to watch older people like us work. The students should be doing the work. Jeffrey's teachers also put him into classes only focused on remediating his reading and writing. He begged to get out of them, hated them, and therefore disengaged and avoided them. Even if students engage in this work and make normal growth, students who are behind will always stay behind if they are not given the opportunity to do the same work as their peers. Luckily, Jeffrey had some regular classes, and when he and I worked on his homework from those teachers, I had the opportunity to use a just-in-time intervention approach. We worked on his homework, and as I saw he needed work on, say, capitalization and punctuation when writing, we could pause in context of his grade level work, do some practice, and then apply those remedial skills to his grade level assignments. And that is the approach that the experts are recommending we take when we return to our classrooms and use an acceleration approach rather than a remediation approach. One quote that I read this week, and it really stood out to me, I loved this analogy reading about that acceleration idea. It's from a blog post from my go-to organization I mentioned last week, Achievement Network. I highly recommend you subscribe to their newsletter to get updates on their latest work with districts and schools across the country. They work with real schools and students with a relentless focus on bringing equitable education to traditionally marginalized populations. And they provide a lot of guidance on how to do this work. No, they're not sponsoring this event. I just really am impressed, and I learn a lot from everything I read from them. Let's get into the technology. A few FAQs from this week were about Facebook and navigating Facebook, questions of how do I find and save posts that I like for later. And you are going to do that by, again, clicking on these three dots, saving the post. And what I learned this week is you can actually save them in titled collections. So you can find them in categories that are meaningful to you later. And then to find these saved posts again, you are going to Facebook's homepage, not your profile. That one took me a while. The homepage, and on the left here, there is a saved option, and that will bring you to a page with all of your saved posts. Another question that I fielded a lot was actually getting the Bitmojis out of the extension on your page. The easiest way to do this if you're working with a program that allows you to is to just drag and drop. So you're going to search for the Bitmoji, hold your mouse down on the one you find, and drag it to your page. If that's not an option for what you're using, then you can right-click on the Bitmoji and copy it or save it to your desktop and then insert it into what you're working on. The next question was, how do I even find them? I put together some of my favorite poses and keyword searches for you on this screen. As you can see, there's a lot, and they're not always intuitive. For example, I just found this one emoji that has a ton of great, funny Bitmojis that you can use. I also found relax, which is the one that gives us this beanbag you see everywhere, and the one that looks like you're meditating. And just today, after I finished these slides, if you type in school or work, some stuff will come up for you too. Again, I definitely suggest that you save the Bitmojis when you find them onto a file, a Google slide deck, whatever works for you, so that you don't have to search for them in the moment of trying to make these activities. A really good question that came up a lot this week was how to actually make the stuff in your classroom looks like it belongs there. I'm going to come out of presentation mode for a second. so that I can show you. I have two bookcases here, right? One is a front view and one is on an angle with a perspective. And it is important to just make sure that what you're trying to put on the shelves or in the room are following these same basic angles to show the perspective. It doesn't have to be perfect, but no matter how much you try to put this set of books on these flat shelves, it's not going to look like they belong there. But if you make them small enough to slide in, they will look like they are sitting inside the shelf that matches their perspective. A trick to really working with this is to zoom in on your slide. So you're going to come over here and click zoom, click 1 or 2 times so that you have a better view of your pictures, and then go back to the arrow option so that you can move them around. And that way you can move them with better detail. And then when you zoom out, they look better. Even though this little set of books looks nothing like real books when you're zoomed in like this, because they have to be so small to look like they fit on this shelf, and because they're in the same perspective as that bookcase, when they're sitting in the right spot on the shelf and then you zoom out again, easy way is to click on this drop down and click fit. They look good enough for a cartoon classroom to sit on the shelves. So pay attention to the angles when you're picking your objects to go in your room. The same thing goes to the tables and chairs, making sure that your chairs are matching the angles that your furniture is so that they look like they go with it. And you don't have to be perfect, right? This desk is facing straight forward and this chair is on an angle, but we've all seen chairs on angles behind desks before. So as long as the chair is relatively the right size so that it looks like it goes with that desk, it'll look good enough. And then another trick is if you have 2 chairs at the same table, if you make the one that's supposed to be a little bit farther away from you in the picture, just a tiny bit smaller, drag those blue lines in just one bit, then it will look perspective-wise like the chair is farther away in the picture and it will look more natural. And don't forget that you can use the same chair and use our rotate flip horizontally option. So if I just had one chair here, I could right click, copy, right click. Oh, my video is hiding it. Paste, and then I can right click, rotate horizontally, and make sure you bring that table to the front using order like we learned last week. And now the same chair looks like it's sitting on both sides of the table. Another great question was, how do I manage moving multiple objects at the same time? And pardon all the text on this slide, but it's not as easy to explain in words as you would hope. So if the objects have nothing in their way, then you can simply, I'm going to use these over here, you can click at the top corner of the group of objects and hold down your mouse and drag this box around them until you're at the bottom right-hand corner. And anything that's in this box you're making will be highlighted. And now you can move them as a group. You can make them bigger or smaller as a group. You can even group them together if you know you want to keep them together. Like if you've put all kinds of stuff on your shelves and you're going to move the shelf on the other side of the room, you don't want to do that individually. You're going to right click and group these objects together. Once you group objects together, you cannot add a link to the group, but we can use that transparent box trick, and we'll go over that again later. One trick that I do want to show you, because I think this is a great thing to use in some of our interactive presentations, is how to make a stack of objects. So say your children are practicing making change, counting money, using base 10 blocks. putting pin locations on a map, putting things on a number line, making patterns, anytime you would want them to drag and drop a seemingly endless stack of objects, this is what you're going to do. So I'm going to use this group of nickels over here. And all you do is you take one, make sure you have plenty of room, and you are going to copy and paste it a bunch of times. Then you are going to highlight all of them, making sure that nothing is in the way. And you are going to use right-click, align horizontally center, and then align vertically middle. And that puts everything in a stack. And now you can drag and drop from this pile, and there seems to always be one left. That's a great trick. Moving on to actually making some interactive and adaptive digital learning materials. First, we need to understand the difference. A question that I've seen online all the time is, why am I even doing this? So there are 3 ways that I've identified now, the main ways we can use these Bitmoji classrooms or these interactive slideshows that we've been making. The first one, where we all start, is like a landing page, where you start. If you want to just organize all your links, make a friendly page for people to visit, and then click back out to what they need to do, then that's what we covered in last week's webinar. This week, we're looking at how do we actually make these Bitmoji classrooms or these slideshows the part of the lessons themselves. So an adaptive experience, meaning that when a visitor, a student, colleague makes a choice and clicks on something, it goes to a different place in the presentation. So this could be a right-wrong answer. You get the answer right, you go to the next question. You get the answer wrong, you get feedback, try again. Versus an interactive experience where you're actually manipulating the slides themselves to complete the work. So that's that drag and drop, like I just showed you. And the possibilities are endless in terms of what kind of work can be completed online and how we need to make effective materials to help do that work. Why this is important is because depending on what you want your materials to do is going to be how you have to share them. So when you look at the landing page and the adaptive experiences, only the links need to work most of the time. So you can share with your students in any view-only system that you have. If you can post it right to your learning management system as view-only, that's great. You set the view-only permissions on the page and you can share the link, or you can use publish to the web, and we're going to get into detail about how to use that later. If you are having an interactive experience, that's where it gets slightly more complicated because the students need to have edit access to the slides themselves. So that's where you would post to your learning management system using make a copy for each student, or you would use that force copy technique so that when the students click on it, they have to make their own copy. And again, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Some home pages. We've seen a lot of really good ones this past week. These are just a few that people have posted in our group that is slowly growing. I really like these because they're simple, they're clean, and you can tell where you need to click. This one on the right really just simplifies the whole thing if you're not really into the cutesy part of it. Some easy to see icons that link out, but it's still a friendly landing page, so that is great. In order to make them actually landing pages, I just want to review really quickly again how to make a link. You are highlighting the text or selecting the object that you want to link to, and you are either going to right-click, select from the toolbar, or insert a link, and you have these three options depending on what you want to do. Paste in URL, select a slide from the presentation. I'm going to show you how that works. Or I just found this week. If you know what you want, but you don't have the link yet, you can search for it right in this bar, and websites will pop up right here, and you can insert right from there. And then make sure you click apply. This still bugs me sometimes. We're so used to Google just saving everything automatically. You forget to hit this apply button, and then the link doesn't stay. Just make sure. So we made this week for my friend Lisa. She's a guidance counselor, and she wanted to have a Bitmoji classroom or office. And these links on the bulletin board are going to separate rooms. And this one is a waiting room where they can sign up and to make an appointment slot with her. And then we're going to put a couple of links to the guidance department website for in the meantime. And then you can click back to go back to her office. So that is a simple way to connect different rooms together. Make sure that you have something on there that goes back to the main page so that people can go in and out. This is an example of when you would use that transparent box. Because there's so much going on in this little bulletin board, you have the bulletin board yourself. She put the cute thumbtacks. We have the box and the text. We want it to be as easy for kids as possible. So let me come out of present mode again. This would be an example of when a transparent box would be helpful. So you're just going to go up here to the shapes, pick a shape, and draw the shape over the general area. And it can be over the thumbtacks and everything, just so that it makes a nice big space for kids to click on. And then you're using the fill color and the line color to make them both transparent. And then you can right click and link to whatever you want from there, just like you would anything else. And now the kids can click anywhere on here to go to that next spot. You don't always have to use the transparent box. It's actually the last option because it is just one more step, but sometimes it makes it easier for the kids, and that's what matters. So now publishing to the web. The key to publishing to the web when you have more than one slide is hiding the slide from auto-advancing. And I think it's called hide in PowerPoint, so I keep saying that, but or skip slide in Google Slides. And all you for that is you right click on the slide and click skip slide. And then you see this little icon comes up, and that means in presentation mode, which is what you're essentially doing when you use publish to the web. Your presentation mode will skip that slide from auto advancing. And you want to skip every slide in the presentation except for the very first one. So if I wanted to put this whole thing into publish to the web, you can select multiple slides by clicking on the one at the top, holding down the shift key on your keyboard, and then click on the last one. And you see it highlighted all the ones in between, and then you are able to hide them all at once or skip them all at once. That way, let me unskip that. You can just unskip it by doing it again. That way, when you go to publish to the web, those slides won't come up unless somebody clicks on what you want them to. So for example, back to Lisa's office. Here's her office. I can click anywhere I want on the screen. It's not going to go anywhere. But once I click on office hours, it brings me to her waiting room. and then I can click to go back to her room. To get to publish to the web, one more time, you're going to File, scroll down to Publish to the Web, and then you can ignore all of this stuff because we've skipped all the slides except for slide number 1, and then you click Publish. Once you click Publish, you have to click OK, and then you get this link. The only annoying part about Publish to the Web is you have to come back and get this link every time you want it to work. You cannot use the URL bar as normal. That is going to give them a link to the editable slide. You want to use this link inside Publish to the Web. So just remember that, always go back there. Okay, adaptive experiences. Like I explained at the beginning, this means that your slides are going to go in different directions based on the choices people made. So for example, if a student gets it correct, it's going to go to the next question, incorrect, feedback, try again. Or a student can decide for themselves, looking at some review problems, are they ready to take the quiz? Do they need to start over, or they just want some practice? And then it can go to 3 different locations, and I'm going to show you examples of both. This is going to be important when we talk about that assessing for learning loss or already mastered content. This is an easy way to give students some example questions and problems, and if they get them right, give them something a little bit harder. If they get them wrong, give them something a little bit easier so that you can assess where on the continuum they are in terms of what they're bringing to the table before you start the lesson, right? I think in the spring, at least in my experience, we did a lot of, shoot to the middle, and some people were bored and some people were confused. And so this really, the beauty of doing online learning is you can personalize the learning in a number of ways, and making these adaptive lessons, materials is one of those ways. Okay, I'm going to show you an example, and I'm trying a new thing now that I'm learning all about Facebook. I have made some units to practice inside our group. So I'm going to show you this example, and a copy of it is inside the group. So you're going to go to Jane Natalie Coaching, select groups, join the interactive learning materials collaboration, and then click on units. Inside this unit will be a video showing you how to make what I'm about to show you, and then a half-done version of this slideshow that you can play around with yourself. So here is the example. Simple punctuation for dialogue. Student chooses which one. If they choose a wrong one, it's going to go to a slide that shows the punctuation rules, and then they can try again. Goes to, if you pick the right one, it's going to say good job and go to the next question. So this is as basic as it gets. So I invite you all to try that unit out and see if you can play with the links there in something I've already started for you. Now, interactive experiences. This is when these students are actually manipulating the slides themselves. A really good thing that I think will be powerful online is making materials that help students participate in deliberate practice, meaning they are going to try it and the material is going to self-correct it. I have a few examples that are pretty low tech. This idea came from my cousin Jenny, who's a math teacher in Texas. And simply you give them, this is just a table in a Word document, and they do their practice, and then you turn the answer, the text of the answer, the same color as the background. So for this, you would just turn it white. And then when student is ready to check their answer, they just need to highlight that section of text and they reveal the answer. You don't even need anything fancy to do that, just changing the color of the text to match the background. Another example that's a little bit fun is making it one of those self-check games. You can see I have some simple problems here and I lined up the possible answers with letters. And one version of this, the students were able to click once they spelled out this word, and then it went to a hidden search game where they had to find the object. You can also make your own riddle to make sure that they're self-correcting, however you want to use it. Pretty much as long as the word makes sense at the end, they probably got all of the answers correctly, and it will tell them to go back and check if it doesn't make sense. We've seen old school worksheets do this forever. And then what I'm going to show you how to do is a drag and drop reveal the answer for practice as well. So the students try the answer. Once they have it on their own scrap paper, they can drag this checkbox out of the way and check their answer. I've also built this so that there will be a link next to the problem so that if they get the wrong answer, they can click on this link to watch the teacher do the problems out step by step. In order to do that, we need to talk about how to lock down the images. This is another question that I get all the time. How do I make sure that the objects I don't want to move around are safe from being messed up? There are a couple of options. The first one is downloading the slide as a ping. I'm going to show you how to do that later. That makes a picture of everything that's on your slide, and then you can upload that into the background. That's what we've been doing to make our classrooms. That is the updated version of using the snipping tool. When you save it as a ping, it has the highest resolution of the picture when you re-upload it so that it does not get blurry. But in a pinch, or if you just prefer to, you can use that snipping tool or take a screenshot on your Mac and do it as well. I don't really use the snipping tool anymore unless I am taking only a portion of a slide or a website and inserting it into a PowerPoint or a Google slide, and then it's really great. But for the background, you really don't need to. Just save it as a ping. And then what I have recently discovered on different Facebook groups and such, and this is becoming my new favorite way, I will show you in a minute, is using the master slide view. So it's a couple extra steps, but what this does is it puts everything in the background and it leaves it in a place where you can still edit it later. And that's really powerful because you don't have to worry about making mistakes and not being able to edit them or having to re-download it as an image and all of that. So it definitely cuts out steps if you remember to use it from the beginning. And if you are using the same background on several slides, then you can insert it right away without having to put the background in multiple places, and that's really helpful as well. So when I'm at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you how to make this entire sequence that is adaptive and interactive. It is a review before a quiz where the students are going to self-assess. How are they ready? They're going to have a choice of going back to a lesson or to practice. And then when they are ready, they're going to link to a Google form. First, we're going to take a breath. That was a lot of tips and tricks. I hope I'm not talking too quickly. I'm going to take a drink of water. I hope that you're thinking about what you've already done this week and how you can make it easier for yourself going forward. I hope that answered some of your questions if you haven't been on our Facebook group and asking and answering questions in real time. Speaking of, before we go to the next part, I want to remind you that all of today's resources, including the link to the survey, is going to be in the notes tab on my Facebook page, and that should be linked right in the description of this video. Please complete the survey. I really do look at all of the feedback and the questions, and I use it to plan the next sessions. And then if you have questions and comments and you want to talk to me and each other, please join our groups and also make sure that I have your email so you don't miss anything. The how. Before I show you exactly how to build that entire experience, I want to talk about how this impacts our teaching and learning and why it's important to think about what we're putting into these slides, not just making them look good. I mentioned him last week. This is my go-to. John Hattie just put out the distance learning playbook with Fisher and Frey, and he has been publishing his research since 2009, and he conducts meta-studies of research, and he has done over 800 of them now, and that comprises over 800 million students. And so when he looks at something and says this works or this works well, I am inclined to believe him. I would definitely get one of these or multiple of these books if you don't have them already. This research organizes our thinking about instructional practices based on how it influences student achievement. And he says most of the things we do in our classrooms do have an effect. So the question is, what works best when we are implementing these things in our classrooms? And this is his effect size barometer. So just really quickly how this works so that it makes sense when we look at the ideas on the next few slides. This 0.4 here is really what he considers the hinge point. It is the average effect of a teacher's influence on students in 1 year's time. That means it is more that the teacher being in the room is helping the student learn more than the student's just natural growth of getting a year older, experiencing the world, maturing, etc. That would fall under these low effect scores. So what we're looking for is anything above a 0.4. That means students are making more than 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. And there are some special influences that have more than a 1 effect size, and that means they're improving at an even faster rate. And if we can consolidate our practices into what works best, then we have a better chance of helping our students catch up and get ahead. Before we talk about what those effects and influences are, I need to show you this graphic. I want to make this point, and I think just by taking a glance at this, I think you know where I'm going with it. Now more than ever, there are a lot of things out of our control and out of our influence, and that produces anxiety, stress, doubt, but it's also freeing. I saw this graphic for the first time when I attended a great coaching seminar by Elena Aguilar, and it became my team's mantra. It became a norm in our meetings. If we got off on a tangent and realized that what we were discussing or more likely complaining about was outside of our control, we tabled it and focused our energies on what we could actually do. So the effect sizes I'm going to highlight on the next slide will focus on things within our control as teachers, even when there seems to be little of that. Just going to leave this little sphere in the corner as a reminder as we look at a few of the over 200 influences Hattie has identified. These are the top 5. You can see that they have effect sizes above 1, and topping the list is our collective belief in ourselves as teachers, in our buildings, that we can help students achieve and we are good teachers. So we need to support each other. We need to build our capacity and our confidence, because if we go into this game believing in ourselves, our students will succeed. The second one, interestingly enough, is all about the student's perception of his or her learning. Right? Self-reported grades means that the student can accurately reflect on his or her learning and growth. And as they can do that, that means they can set goals and assess if they are reaching them and problem solve and reflect on their learning and make next steps. And that is what really pushes them forward in their learning. Also included as very effective practices are some concepts that we are familiar with and can definitely discuss how to accomplish them in any model of learning. Jigsaw, which comes down to students learning chunks of information and then teaching other students to make a full picture. Transfer strategies. I see this when I coach teachers as well. When I show you how to do something for one purpose, you might not make the connection that the same skill can be applied to another task. And that's why I focus on the why of what we're doing and the decision-making process of using these skills, so that you move on besides the basic technology and you can apply them to your teaching and learning materials. And we should be building deliberate practice, which is what I just showed you some examples of, and I'm going to show you how to build yourself. Just a few other strategies that reinforce the idea that good teaching is good teaching, and we can do this online, in hybrid, or in remote situations. We can have students summarizing, we can use mnemonics, we can encourage repeated reading, we can work on our own ability to be clear, and we can certainly give good feedback. It all relates back to learning how to learn and helping our students discover that process. And especially if they're at home, they have to take active participation in that learning process. Before we move on, I want to show you a few of the lowest effect sizes on student learning. And there are a lot of negative influences on learning, but again, I am choosing just a few that are actually within our control. Hattie talked about this in his webinar for the distance learning playbook last week. Students can sense if you like them or not, and who wants to learn from someone who doesn't like them. Depression also highlights our need to focus on our students and ourselves, social emotional needs, and boredom. Let's try to make this fun as much as we can, whether we're in school or online. I've been working on trying to make some lessons that work like games. Students always seem to want to level up, earn some kind of guru title, and if they're interested in what they're learning, going back to my story about Jeffrey, they will engage in that learning. So take a minute. I'm going to leave this up here and take one more drink of water while you think about, why is this important to my role? How is this relevant to my planning right now? And what are some ways that we can effectively accomplish these things remotely? All right. If you're not watching this live, you can certainly hit pause and think for as long as you want, but I'm going to move along. Going to remind you that there are 2 more weeks for us to work on this together on these Sunday webinars, and I really hope that you join me. Again, next week we're going to do assessment, and the following week I'm going to talk about flexible learning spaces. Each week I'm going to highlight some more research and some more of the conversation about reimagining and reinventing education, because that is my passion, and my goal is to help cut through some of the tech questions so that we can actually talk about the teaching and learning. To help me prepare for these sessions, please keep in touch, post on my Facebook page within our groups, email me directly, leave feedback on my survey, and tell me what are your biggest questions and concerns regarding being ready to shift between in-person, hybrid, and distance learning models, and what kind of assessments are you thinking about trying to adapt to those models, and where is your general thinking about putting all of this learning material stuff that we can now create into practice. And in order to do that, these are all of my contact information, social media, tags, handles are they called. We're all learning something, and I have been looking at these and learning how they work and communicating with people, and I've been having a blast. So I hope that we continue together. I hope this is helpful. I am going to show you now how to, from start to finish, put together an adaptive interactive lesson. All of the how-to slides are available for you to go step by step. Again, those will be linked in the notes on my Facebook page, Jane Natalie Coaching. Please like and follow it so we can stay in touch and you get my notifications. And now I'm going to show you how to put all of that into practice. Okay, just looked at that one. Here we go. So we have here 3 slides I've already put together. There's no links. We already know how to put in our Bitmojis and our boxes. So the purpose of this is the students will get a problem to review before the quiz. They will decide, am I ready for the quiz or I'm not? If they click here, they will go back to the actual lesson. I'll show you how to insert a video. When they're ready, they will go to their deliberate practice. That is where this will be a drag and drop. From here, they can go to their quiz or they can sign up for extra help. So the first thing you want to do before you start moving links around is ask yourself, what functionality do I need for these slides? What parts are interactive and what parts are adaptive? So this is like our landing page, right? This organizes the 3 options for people to click on, and then it's going to go to a different place based on what they choose, but they don't have to do anything but click on the links. That's important. Same thing for slide 2. They're going to click on the video that's here. They're going to click here to go to the practice, but they don't have to manipulate anything on this slide. That means that slide 1 and 2 can be given to the students in a view-only mode, but slide 3 needs to be in edit mode so they can actually move the boxes out of the way. So let's finish up slide 2, and then we will talk about how to deal with the edit slides. So to insert a video, hopefully you're making videos of yourself teaching these lessons. Just for time, I found a YouTube video on 2-step equations here. I just linked it down here. So I'm going to copy that link, and I am going to go to Insert Video. I have options here. I can search YouTube right here if I want to type in 2-step equations, or if you know what you're looking for, you can also copy in the URL like I'm going to do, and you can also upload videos from your Google Drive. This is helpful, especially if YouTube is blocked, because you can use Screencastify, you can use Screencast-O-Matic, you can use whatever you're using to make your videos, store them in your Google Drive, and then search from them. So this here is one of me. So I am just going to click in the URL, copy it in, comes up, select, and now it's on my screen. You want to pay attention to the options over here. This allows you to start the video where you want it. So say you find a great video, but it's 20 minutes long and the clip you want doesn't start until 10 minutes in, you can start it at 10 minutes and you can end it whenever you want as well. So that helps you clip the videos for your students. So you can just put this in here, make it whatever size you want. And now in view mode, the kids can just click on that. I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. If YouTube is blocked, like I said, you can still upload from Google Drive, and you can also use this link to safeyoutube.net. My new friend online, Zainab, taught me how to do this, and it's amazing. You can copy any YouTube URL into this website, and it comes out with a safe link that kids can click on even if YouTube is blocked. You cannot insert it into the slide like this, but you can type in, click here to watch the video, and then they'll be able to watch it. So I'm just going to leave this here. And then this will eventually be linked to my practice sheet, but I'm not going to do that until the end. Okay, slide 3. This is where we have to deal with putting things in the background. So I'm going to show you both ways of using the download as a ping to put in the background, as well as the master slides. I'm going to do ping first. I always recommend when you start messing around, just copy the slide, duplicate the slide, right click, duplicate, then you can always revert back to where you left off. So to download as a ping, you first want to get rid of everything you don't want clicked. And you have some decisions to make here. You don't need to go crazy putting transparent boxes over everything. If they are just clicking on these words, that's not hard to click the link to, so I would just leave these alone. Like we talked about last week, it gets a little confusing when you have words inside a box. So you either want to make sure that you are linking to the actual words themselves, or this is when you would use that transparent box. So I'm going to use the transparent box just to show you how it works. So I'm going to put everything in the background except for these 4 links that say step by step and these 4 check marks. So I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard as I click on each one of these elements on the page. And then I am going to cut them out of the page. So either Control X or right click, cut. And now they're gone. You can see the answers. Now you are going to go to File, Download as a PNG, ping, whatever you say, just like you would the background of your Bitmoji classroom. And then you're going to insert a blank, go to background, choose your image. And because this is still right here on my screen, I can just drag that in there. Click done. Now all of my pieces I don't want to move are stuck in the background, and I can paste back in the movable pieces. Pretty simple. The other way you can do this is by, I'm going to use this one that already has all of the unmovable pieces just on it. You can put all of this into the master slide view. Now, if you remember to start using the master slide view when you start, it's even easier. But I've already built this, so I'm just going to move it to the back now. So I'm going to highlight everything on this page, and I'm going to cut it off the page just like I did the last pieces. And I'm going to go to View, Master. And you can use any of these and just delete off anything that's on them to make them blank, and then paste in your work. You can rename it if you want to, but you don't have to. And then when you X out of that, you are going to right click on your blank slide and go to apply layout. And now you see your work is one of the options and it's in the background. The nice part about this is if you need to edit this later, you made a mistake or you want to copy this and do, 5 different problems, you don't have to start over. You can go right back to view master and make whatever edits you want, even after you put the movable pieces back on the page. So that is definitely a benefit over using the pinged version. So to get those movable pieces, I'm going to pull them off this page again. It's going to highlight them all. I'm going to right click and use copy just so they don't get off of there. And I am going to paste them onto this page. So now it's in the background. Now we're ready to add our links. So to make this step by step, I literally took my phone and a piece of paper and I did this problem while I was videoing my hand taking the step-by-step equation. It was not fancy. It was just me doing the problem out so students could find it. I saved it to my Google Drive. So here is the video. You want to make sure that everything you are sharing is available for link sharing. So you are going to right click on this video and click Get Shareable Link. This will pop up. It'll say anyone with the link can view. Copy the link in. And then when you go back to your example, oops, stuck behind the controls. Hold on. Now you can highlight this text, right click, insert a link like you always do, paste in that URL and click apply. You're going to click on this and now it is available here. The next thing you need to do is decide how you want these pages to interact. So I'm going to delete these extra ones. And like we said before, these top 2 slides only need link access. This last one needs to be editable. So I am going to go ahead and take this 3rd slide out of this presentation, and so that I can link it separately to make this editable while the other ones are not. So to do that, I'm going to highlight the slide, go to File, make a copy of just the selected slides, copy of review. You can change the title so that it makes sense for you. It's going to pop up next to you here. And I'm just going to leave that there for now. I'm going to delete it out of the originals. So now I have 2 slides in my original that I only need link access to and 1 that I can edit. So if we are truly just reviewing before a quiz, then the practice is just for the student's benefit. And if we are looking at this as an approach of mastery versus task completion, I don't really need evidence if the student did the practice or not. I can always go and assign the practice to the student if they don't do well on the quiz. But for now, I'm going to leave it as optional deliberate practice. So I'm going to make a forced copy of the document by highlighting everything that is after the edit and replacing it with copy and pressing enter. So now this is a forced copy version and I can copy that link into both sections that are going to take me to that practice. This is a place where I would use that transparent box because I have a couple of things going on here. So I'm just going to insert a shape over the part where I want to go to the practice, transparent fill, transparent line, right click on that transparent box, link, and I already have my forced copy. And then I can copy this entire box and I can put it on my other slide, paste, move it and size it up here. So now it goes both places. I'm going to make a box around this one that says take me to the quiz. And I'm going to link that one to slide 2. So link slides in this presentation, slide 2, apply, and then this last one is going to take me to a quiz. So next week, I'm going to show you how to build Google Forms. For today, I am just going to go ahead and get the link to send it. You click on this little link, and then you copy the URL, and that will give the students the quiz version of the form. And then one more transparent shape. Right click, link, goes to Google Form. And then I also need that same link on the other slide, on the one that goes to this copy. But I already made it copy. So all I have to do is replace that word copy with edit again, and that brings me back to my editable version. And then I am going to put one more transparent box. Like we said, it's not difficult, it just gets tedious. And I am going to link that to the Google quiz, the form. Make this transparent. Okay, I'm not going to link these things today, although if you want to stick around with me, I know it's 3:05. If you have 5 to 10 more minutes, I will show you how to use your Google Calendar to make sign-up slots. I also really recommend that you put a tech help button on all of the pages that you use that are interactive like this, so that students can click there, watch you explain how this works, so that they are not getting stuck by the technology. The last thing we need to do is publish these 2 slides to the web. So I am going to skip slide number 2 so that it does not go over the advanced auto advance. And then I am going to go to File, Publish to the Web. I can ignore all of this. I'm going to publish it, click OK. And then when I use this URL, now I have a presentation mode system where the students can click to go back to the lesson, watch the video, go to the practice, make their own copy of the practice, do the work, check their answers, see a step-by-step video of the teacher doing the problem out if they need it, and then they are going to go to take the quiz. I appreciate you sticking with me this far. I hope that was really helpful. If you have a few more minutes, I will show you a really cool trick to make this sign up for extra help button work through your Google Calendar. So this only works through your school account of Google Apps for Education. So I am going to switch to my school account and I am going to go to my calendar. So this is how we had the waiting room set up for that guidance office. And this is also how you can have parents, teachers, students sign up for whatever you need to do. So you're going to go to Create, and you're going to use appointment slots. And this allows you to pick a duration of time and then how long the slots are. So say I want students to be able to sign up for 20-minute slots for extra help. When I click save, now here's today. This is what it looks like on my calendar. When you go to the appointment page, you have boxes that the students can click on to sign up for the appointment. You can ask them to describe what their question is or whatnot, and all of that. So that is my extra bonus tip for you today. Again, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned some things, and then I hope you have some more questions and you want to continue the conversation on Facebook. The links are in the description to this video. As soon as I stop recording, I am going to post them in the notes section of my Facebook page. And later this evening, I will be emailing them out to everybody who gave me their email. I really, really ask that you take a few minutes to fill out the survey so that I can use your feedback to make these tailored to what it is this group of people need. And as long as you are willing to collaborate, I will be here working with you. I hope you have a great day.